This PowerPoint is on Chapter 13, which is on industrial organizational psychology, or from here on out we'll refer to it as I O Psychology. A quote to start out this lecture is, "Company culture is the continuous pursuit of building the best, most talented, and happiest team we possibly can." And we'll discuss in a later slide what company culture means. What is the culture of a company? Is it good? Is it bad? What creates a good culture? What creates a good leader? All those things go into the culture. So let's first define I O psychology. It's a branch of psychology that studies how human behavior and psychology affect work and how they are affected by work. You can divide I O psychology up into industrial psychology, which primarily is concerned with describing job requirements, assessing individuals for their ability to meet those requirements. In addition, once employees are hired, industrial psychology studies ways to train them and evaluate them. And as a consequence of its concern for candidate characteristics, industrial psychology must also consider issues of legality regarding discrimination in hiring. Organizational psychology, on the other hand, is a little bit different. It is a discipline interested in how the relationships among employees affect those employees and the performance of a business. That includes studying worker satisfaction, how motivated they are, how committed they are, and it also studies management, leadership styles, and the culture of the organization, as well as how an organization structures, again, management and leadership styles, social norms, and role expectations affect each employee, affect individual behavior. As a result of its interest in worker well-being and relationships, organizational psychology also considers the subjects of harassment, which includes sexual harassment and workplace violence. Unfortunately, those are things that have to be taken into account. Let's look at a few contributors to I O psychology. Cattell, Munsterberg, and Scott. Cattell started a psychological consulting company called Psychological Corporation. Munsterberg published Psychology and Industrial Efficiency, which covered topics such as employee selection, employee training, and effective advertising. And Scott was actually one of the first psychologists to apply psychology to advertising, management, and personnel selection. Elton Mayo, his studies mark the origin of organizational psychology. They began as research into the effects of the physical work environment, but the researchers found that the psychological and social factors in the factory were actually of more interest than the physical factors. So those studies examined how human interaction factors such as supervisorial style increased or decreased productivity. A few more, Kurt Lewin was involved in studies of group interactions, cooperation, competition, and communication that bear on organizational psychology. And Frederick Taylor was an engineer, so he wasn't a psychologist, he was an engineer, but he saw that if one could redesign the workplace, there would be an increase in both output for the company and wages for the worker. He believed that the best outcome for the employee and management would be achieved through training and development so that each employee could provide the best work. So we know that the first part of working for an organization is employee selection. So let's look at that a little bit. The first step in selecting employees is job analysis. That could mean writing a job description, and in that job description you have to identify the tasks, the primary tasks of the job. You kind of have to identify the characteristics and the requirements that someone's going to have to do the job, and it also involves training new employees so that they can be the most effective at the job. So how does a company determine that a candidate has the right characteristics? I think interviews are what's most often used to determine if someone has the correct characteristics, but also some testing could be done just to assess the person's knowledge and skills. Personality tests sometimes are offered to ensure the potential employee will be a good fit for the culture of the company. As we previously discussed, the culture of the organization, you want to make sure that person's personality will fit in with the culture of the company. Other factors in hiring that unfortunately might be influential in the hiring process include the candidate's similarity to the interviewer. We know that we tend to be more drawn to people who are similar to us, so unfortunately that could affect it. Research has shown that the candidate's physical attractiveness can also affect whether they're hired or not. So in response to the possible bias of the interviewer, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission was formed in 1965. So what does the EEOC do? They are responsible for enforcing federal laws that make it illegal to discriminate against a job applicant or an employee because of the person's race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, national origin, age, disability, or genetic information. So they have a huge responsibility of making sure that discrimination and bias isn't a part of the hiring process. So we've discussed hiring. Let's move on to job satisfaction. Job satisfaction describes the degree to which individuals enjoy their job. It was described by Edwin Locke as the state of feeling resulting from appraising one's job experiences. While job satisfaction results from both how we think about our work and how we feel about our work, job satisfaction is impacted by the work itself, our personality, and the culture we come from and live in. So, what are some factors in whether a job is satisfying or not, besides the ones we just mentioned? As you can see in the diagram, there are a lot of things that go into job satisfaction. The employee's perspective on the work group, how they feel about their coworkers, their attitude toward the organization. They feel like it's a worthwhile organization. The financial benefits. We know that the financial benefits are always a huge factor in their job satisfaction. The employee's attitude toward their manager or their leader can have a big influence on job satisfaction, and just the working conditions in general. We want to make sure we're in a safe environment for our work, and that's going to affect whether we're satisfied or not. I included this just because we often don't have a very good work-life balance. We often don't have very good boundaries between work and family, work and life. 6 ways to improve that is find a mentor, someone you can go to who can provide insight, who you can discuss issues with. Another thing is plan your vacation and days off in advance. Take your vacation days, take that relaxation time. Prioritize your top tasks and do them first. Take time to rest, and even exercising. We know that exercise is a stress reliever, so exercise. And always remember that it's important to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself before you can take care of anybody else. So always remember that. So moving on, let's look at management and leadership. And we know that an employee's manager or leader can have a great effect on their job satisfaction. Scientific management, which is a theory of management that analyzes and synthesizes workflows with the main objective of improving economic efficiency and human relations into the notion of leadership behavior. There are 2 approaches to management that we'll discuss right now. The first is Theory X, the second is Theory Y. Theory X believes employees are lazy, they resist change, they don't like responsibility, they need pay incentives, and they're disloyal. However, Theory Y believes employees are motivated and open to change, can handle responsibility, prefer rewards over threats, and are loyal. So you can imagine which one is going to be the most effective management form. Probably Theory Y. Strengths-based management focuses on how an organization can best use an individual's strengths, an approach called strengths-based management. And a strength is a particular enduring talent possessed by an individual that allows them to provide consistent, near-perfect performance in tasks involving that talent. So an example might be that an employee is especially good at analyzing data. So a manager would want to put that person in a position of analyzing data because they're going to be near perfect at it. They're going to enjoy it, and therefore their job satisfaction is going to increase, and it's going to help the company. Another type of management is transactional leadership. The focus is on supervision and organizational goals, which are achieved through a system of rewards and punishment known as transactions. That should remind you of operant conditioning that we discussed in the chapter on learning, where someone is either rewarded or punished, reinforcement or punishment. So that's what transactional leadership is. They believe everything runs through that system. Transformational leadership, on the other hand, is a bit more involved. Transformational leadership includes intellectual stimulation, individualized consideration, inspirational motivation, and idealized influence. In other words, the leader, as it says, walks the walk. They're very optimistic. They have a lot of empathy for their employees. They set goals and challenges for their employees. That's transformational leadership, which I think, as you can guess, is a very effective type of leadership. Work teams. We know that a lot of organizations now have teams that people work in. A team brings together diverse skills, experience, and expertise. In the team-based approach, teams are brought together and given a specific task or goal to accomplish. There are 3 types of teams. Problem resolution teams are created, obviously, for the purpose of solving a particular problem. Creative teams are used to develop innovative possibilities or solutions. And tactical teams are used to execute a well-defined plan or objective. Here's organizational culture that we've mentioned a couple of times. We mentioned it in the beginning quote of the PowerPoint. So let's define it. It's the basic pattern of shared assumptions, values, and beliefs considered to be the correct way of thinking about and acting on problems and opportunities facing the organization. And if you'll notice, it mentions thinking about and acting on thoughts and behavior. This goes back to the whole idea of one of the core ideas of psychology, where thoughts and beliefs and emotion and behavior are all interconnected. So in an organizational culture, those things are all involved also. It's the combination of all those things. We looked at selecting employees and job satisfaction while they're in the job. Let's look at employee evaluation. Evaluation is an ongoing process throughout an employee's tenure with the company. It's often done with performance appraisals at least once per year. I've heard of some that are done more often, that are done every 6 months. And I know at the initial hiring of an employee, it could be done every 30 days or so. So any company is going to evaluate over a period of time. That's it for the basics on I O psychology. Thank you for listening. And as always, let me know if you have any questions.